The stars shimmered like a memory above the observation deck of the ISS Valiant. But Commander Alina Vega wasn't looking up. Her eyes were locked on the screen in front of her, where an energy spike pulsed across the deep space scanner. It was faint, intermittent, but unmistakably artificial. She tapped the control panel, zooming in on the signal's source. "That's not a natural fluctuation," she murmured. "No," replied Lieutenant Merrick, his voice low. "It's a signature match. Partial, but close enough." Alina's heart stalled in her chest. She didn't need Merrick to say it aloud. She had studied that signal pattern 100 times over the last decade, and once, as a child, she'd listened to it in the dark, curled in her mother's arms as they waited for word that never came. The Odysseus vanished 50 years ago beyond the map systems, lost during a standard interstellar jump, officially declared destroyed. Unofficially, a ghost ship. "Route all sensor data to command," she ordered. "Mark the coordinates. System 9-21 Theta. I want a task force prepared within the hour." "Yes, Commander." Alina stood from the console, gaze drifting to the stars at last. Somewhere out there, beyond the noise and cold silence, something had returned. And if it really was the Odysseus, she needed to see it with her own eyes. The Valiant dropped from orbit like a blade, cutting through the black toward the far edge of the star system. The journey took less than a day with current FDL drives, though for Alina, each minute burned like a fuse. By the time the anomaly appeared on the main screen, she was already strapped in, heart hammering. "Visual contact," Merrick reported, bringing it up now. The ship emerged from the void slowly, as if it were bleeding through the fabric of space itself. Its hull shimmered with unfamiliar alloys, some parts gleaming like obsidian, others alive with shifting orange circuitry. It moved silently, gracefully, a creature reborn. "No transmissions," Merrick said. "But that's definitely the Odysseus. The frame's been altered, but it's her." Alina leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The nameplate was still there, worn but legible beneath alien overlays. "SS Odysseus." A low chime rang across the Valiant's bridge. "A transmission request. Audio only." "Patch it through," she said, her voice tight. A moment of static, then a voice emerged. Calm, familiar. "This is Captain Elias Rourke of the Odysseus." The voice said, "We are returning. Do not interfere. We are no longer what we were." Alina's breath caught. Rourke had been the Odysseus's captain 50 years ago. He hadn't aged a day. "Open a channel," she said quickly. "This is Commander Vega of the ISS Valiant. Confirm identity and condition. We've received no communication for her." "You are not ready for the answers you seek, Commander Vega," the voice interrupted. "Stand down. We do not wish to harm anyone." "Harm?" Her fingers tightened on the edge of her console. "What happened to your crew, Captain?" There was a long pause and a cryptic reply. "We have seen the edge of time. We were remade. We return now with purpose." The channel closed. Alina turned to Merrick. "Prepare a boarding team." "Commander, with respect, we don't know what we're dealing with. That ship. 50 souls were aboard the Odysseus, Lieutenant. One of them was my mother." Merrick fell silent. He nodded, and within the hour, 4 EVA-suited figures launched from the Valiant toward the derelict-turned behemoth. The docking bay opened without command. Inside there was no dust, no decay. The walls pulsed faintly, like veins beneath skin. Lights flickered on in sequence as they advanced, guiding them deeper into the ship. Then the crew saw them. Humanoid, still themselves, but subtly altered. Their movements were too smooth, their skin too pale, their eyes rimmed with faint glow. A man stepped forward, Captain Rourke. "You came anyway," he said, almost with a smile. "You always had your mother's stubbornness." Alina's voice broke through her helmet comm. "What is this, Captain? What happened to you?" Rourke stepped aside, revealing a panel behind him that unfolded into light. Images flickered across it. Stars collapsing in reverse. Alien cities spiraling in impossible dimensions. A vision of Earth, bathed in gold and shadow. "We encountered the architects," Rourke said. "Beings outside of linear time. They took us in, tested us, gifted us. We are the bridge now, between what was and what will be. Alina's eyes burned. This wasn't a rescue mission. You came back for something else. Rourke nodded solemnly. We came to prepare Earth, because the architects are watching, and soon they will decide if your species survives what comes next. Alina stared at him, at the inhuman calm in his voice, the promise or warning within his words. She knew, then, that the return of the Odysseus was not the end of a mystery. It was the beginning of something much bigger, and Earth wasn't ready. The docking clamps groaned as they latched onto the Odysseus, but the ship itself remained eerily still. Inside, Alina Vega stood with her boots planted on a surface that didn't feel like metal, more like warm stone that hummed beneath her feet. The light along the corridor shifted with her movements, tracking her like a living eye. Behind her, Lieutenant Merrick scanned the walls with a handheld sensor. No composite matches. This material, whatever it is, doesn't exist on the periodic table. Alina nodded without looking back. I don't think we're inside a ship anymore. They advanced slowly, weapons holstered but ready, deeper into the vessel's heart. The corridors had changed since her last visit. They moved in ways they shouldn't, curving impossibly or opening into spaces that defied geometry. She wasn't sure if they were being guided or trapped. When the next door opened, it did so like a flower blooming, petals of light peeling back into a radiant chamber. Captain Rourke waited at the center, hands folded behind his back. His uniform was the same, but his eyes glowed faintly like twin embers. He smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. You returned. Good. The ship responds to familiarity. Alina's jaw tightened. We came to learn what you brought back. Rourke gestured casually. This ship is no longer merely human. The architects restructured it atom by atom. It thinks, it grows, and it remembers. A holographic interface bloomed around him, showing schematics that made no sense. Gravity wells spun into spirals, energy looping through negative mass conduits, propulsion diagrams based on concepts that hadn't even been theorized. Merrick stepped forward, entranced. This propulsion drive, folding local space-time, that's impossible. Rourke said, until we saw beyond the edge. Our journey wasn't across distance. It was through understanding. Alina stepped forward, eyes locked on the projections. Why return now? To prepare Earth, Rourke replied. There are threshold civilizations must cross. Yours stands on the brink, clawing toward technologies it cannot yet comprehend. We offer a hand forward, before it's too late. Alina studied the captain. His face was unchanged, but everything beneath was different. The man who once captained the Odysseus was gone, replaced by something new wearing his shape. And what's the cost of this hand forward? She asked. Enlightenment always comes with pain, Rourke said simply, but ignorance guarantees extinction. A low hum echoed through the ship, followed by a gentle tremor beneath their feet. The room dimmed and the walls shifted. A corridor opened where none had existed. She wants to show you, Rourke said. The ship, it's trying to communicate in the only way it knows, by revealing what it has become. Alina hesitated, but curiosity tugged at her. She stepped forward, motioning for Merrick to stay close. As they walked, the walls flickered with fragments of memory. People laughing on Earth, the launch of the original Odysseus, then flashes of strange worlds, oceans floating above land, cities built from crystal thought, beings with elongated forms of shifting matter. It was as if the ship carried not just its journey, but the echoes of 1,000 others. They reached a central chamber unlike the rest. Suspended in the middle was a spherical object, glowing with rhythmic pulses, surrounded by rings that rotated silently in multiple axes. It was mesmerizing. This is the core, Rourke said behind them. It is both engine and mind. Alina stepped closer. And what does it want from us? To unlock you, he said. The architects found potential in humans, latent capabilities bound by biology and fear. We were the first to be awakened. You're not human anymore, she whispered. Rourke didn't argue. Not fully, no. But we remember what it was like to be afraid of the unknown. That's why we've returned, to guide you past that fear. Merrick leaned toward the core. It's pulsing in response to proximity. Is it reading us? It's listening, Rourke said. And soon it will begin to answer. Alina turned back, her thoughts churning. Everything about the Odysseus was a contradiction. Familiar, yet foreign. Salvaged, yet transformed. If what Rourke said was true, Earth stood at a crossroads it never knew existed. But trust in someone who barely resembled a man she once admired was a dangerous thing. We need time to study this, she said. No announcements. No integrations. Not yet. You won't have long, Rourke replied, his voice cool. Change is already in motion. The ship's arrival triggered a quantum resonance across your solar system. The architects are watching. Alina frowned. Watching for what? To see if you are worthy, Rourke said. To see if you can rise, or if you must be left behind. A weight settled in her chest as they made their way back to the docking corridor. The crew aboard the Odysseus hadn't returned with answers. They had returned as a test. And the clock had already started ticking. As the hatch sealed behind her, Alina cast one last glance over her shoulder. The ship pulsed once. It was waiting, back aboard the Valiant. Silence gripped the bridge like a vice. Alina Vega sat motionless in the command chair, the low thrum of the ship's systems pulsing beneath her boots, a hollow echo against the weight of what she'd seen. The crew watched her cautiously, whispers restrained behind guarded expressions. She could feel their unease like static in the air. The Odysseus remained visible on the main screen, suspended in low orbit like a phantom god. It hadn't moved since they disengaged, but it didn't need to. Just its presence warped expectations, stretched boundaries of belief. It was no longer just a ship. It was a question written across the sky, and no one dared guess the answer. Status? Alina asked, her voice sharp enough to cut through the fog. Merrick, back in his seat beside her, tapped at his console. No changes. Energy readings remained stable, but we got sensor ghosts, spikes in localized gravity fields. Subtle but deliberate. It's communicating through anomalies. And the transmission logs. Clean. He hesitated. But we recorded a subharmonic signal embedded in our own comms after leaving their ship. We think it's interacting with our systems, passively, for now. Alina frowned. Like a parasite? Like an invitation, he said. Her thoughts spiraled. The Odysseus hadn't forced its way into Earth's domain. It had presented itself like a mirror, one showing what humanity might become. But mirrors, also distorted, revealed things one wasn't ready to face. The door to the bridge slid open, and Dr. Saratau walked in, pulling off a pair of neuroscan gloves. The Valiant's chief xenoneurologist rarely left the med lab, but today her expression said more than any diagnostic. I ran tests on the core's harmonic pulse, she said without preamble. Exposure to it triggered micro-responses in our brain activity, especially yours, Commander. Alina turned. Mine. Your neural pathways lit up in specific regions. Language, memory, intuition. It was subtle, but something inside that ship recognized you, or resonated with you. Alina stared at her. Why? I don't know, but the data suggests the core wasn't just reading us. It may have amplified something already present. The words churned uneasily in her gut. It wasn't just the ship observing them. They had been altered, even briefly. She remembered the images the walls had shown her, the whispers stitched between pulses of light, the sense of being known. Merrick leaned back in his seat, rubbing his forehead. So what now? We let it integrate with Earth? Give them the keys to our evolution? No, Alina said firmly. We don't act without understanding the consequences. I need a direct line to Central Command. We request containment clearance and a scientific envoy. No public announcements. Dr. Tao folded her arms. You think they'll listen? They have to, Alina said, because if they don't, we're not facing integration. We're facing colonization by something wearing a familiar face. Before anyone could respond, the ship's lights dimmed. A single alarm, low, resonant, echoed from the main console. Incoming vessel, Merrick said. No transponder. FTL rupture detected. 15 clicks off our bow. Alina bolted upright. Another one. The view screen shifted. Space folded open like a wound, and from its core, something emerged. It wasn't human, not even close. A vessel shaped like a fractal star, constantly shifting, light bending across its surface like liquid glass. The sensor screamed and shut down entirely. No known configuration, Merrick said, his voice dry with awe. But the energy signature matches the Odysseus. Slightly different modulation. Could be a response to our proximity. Alina stared as the alien vessel turned, slow, deliberate, toward Earth. Is it hostile? Someone asked. No, Alina whispered. It's delivering a message. Before she could clarify, the main screen blinked and filled with light. Symbols, sounds, geometric code streaming faster than human cognition. The ship's AI tried to parse the transmission, but failed almost instantly. Then the images began. The Odysseus, drifting across voids unmarked on any star map. Encounters with titanic structures of pure energy. The slow unraveling of human thought with an alien logic. And always, watching from the edge, beings not yet revealed, only hinted at in cascading waves of impossibility. Then one image held, Earth as seen from the moon. Slowly, a second Earth emerged beside it. Identical but bathed in darkness. A binary choice. It's a test, Dr. Tal said under her breath. One reality survives. One fades. They're forcing evolution, Merrick muttered. Or extinction. Alina's mind raced. This wasn't diplomacy. It was judgment. The return of the Odysseus wasn't an offer of aid. It was a crucible. Whatever came next would reshape the course of human history, or erase it entirely. She turned to the crew, voice steady despite the storm building inside her. Signal Earth. Full alert. Priority code Indigo. Tell them we've been weighed, and we're not alone in deciding the outcome. The alien ship pulsed once. Earth had just entered the trial. The message was clear, though no word were spoken. Earth was no longer alone. Not in potential, and certainly not in fate. On the command deck of the Valiant, Alina Vega stood as the first witness to an ultimatum sent not by conquerors, but by something far more dangerous. Judges cloaked in the veneer of advancement, and behind them, something older still, watchers that had never spoken but always waited. The alien vessel hovered motionless above the exosphere, its fractal geometry folding in and out of dimensions like breath. The Odysseus had retreated into silence, no longer the centerpiece, but now the herald. Lights across its hull dimmed, as if acknowledging that its part in performance was over. The next act had begun. Communications are down across all quantum bands, Merrick reported, eyes flicking over failing diagnostics. We're in blackout. Earth's likely blind. They want us isolated. Alina said, no outside interference. No time to second guess. Dr. Saratal stood at the edge of the viewport, arms folded tightly. They're watching how we respond. Every decision we make right now is part of the evaluation. We're the sample group. They picked the wrong crew, Merrick muttered. No, Alina said. They picked exactly the right one. Silence followed her words. Everyone understood the implications. It wasn't about who led the fleet. It was about who understood what lay beyond the veil. And Alina, despite every regulation drilled into her, couldn't shake what the Odysseus had shown her. She could still feel the pulse of the ship's core in her mind like a half-remembered dream. The alien vessel sent out a new pulse. This time not data, but action. Space shimmered around it. And suddenly, the Valiant was no longer alone. 3 more ships appeared, identical in design but uniquely configured, each pulsing with distinct frequencies. A formation, a message. They're constructing a grid, Dr. Tal said softly. This is a simulation field, maybe even a controlled pocket reality. They're going to show us something, or trap us inside it. Either way, Alina said, we don't have the option to decline. The ship's hull trembled, not from force, but from an eerie stillness. Time seemed to hiccup. Then everything went white. When vision returned, Alina found herself standing on solid ground, but the sky above was alien. Stars moved in unnatural arcs, and a second moon loomed larger than life. Merrick stood beside her, weapon drawn instinctively. while Dr. Tao crouched, fingers touching the earth-like soil. "This isn't projection," she whispered. "It's real. Quantum matter, stitched together on demand." A figure approached from the horizon, humanoid, but unmistakably not human. Tall, elongated limbs, skin like liquid stone, eyes composed of rotating glyphs. It stopped before them, expression unreadable. Alina stepped forward. "We receive your message." It tilted its head, not in confusion, but in analysis. Then it spoke, not in words, but in layers of thought, emotions, ideas. Time collapsed into meaning. The crew felt it rather than heard it. "Your kind approaches convergence. Conflict will determine capacity." Alina struggled to respond. "Conflict with who?" "With you." "With yourselves." The being raised an arm, and the landscape around them transformed. Before their eyes, Earth appeared, then split into two timelines. One, a world aflame. Technologies used as weapons. Societies fragmented. Earth scarred by its own ambition. The other, a world ascended. Cities interwoven with nature. Sentience shared across species. Humanity evolved into harmony with the systems it once sought to dominate. Alina watched in stunned silence as the two versions coalesced and fractured again and again. "This is the test," Dr. Tao said, awed. "They want to see what kind of species we become when pushed. The return of the Odysseus is a catalyst, but the reaction is ours. No species evolves alone. All are shaped by thresholds. You have reached one." The ground beneath them cracked. From a fissure rose a structure, part temple, part mechanism, spiraling toward the false sky above. At its center, a console pulsed with light. Alina understood. We're supposed to choose. The being did not affirm. It only waited. Merrick scowled. "We don't even know what this machine does." Dr. Tao approached it, scanning. "It interfaces with probability. It doesn't make the decision. It amplifies the one already forming. Meaning, whichever version of humanity we believe in, this machine brings that future closer." Alina stepped toward it, heart pounding. The war she had fought her whole life between fear and faith boiled in her blood. She had seen both worlds, what humanity could destroy, and what it could become. The architect ship hadn't returned to decide for them. It had returned to force the question. And now it watched. She pressed her hand to the console. Light wrapped around her fingers, and the machine responded, not with noise, but with stillness. In that moment, the fragmented Earth collapsed into one vision, still uncertain, still chaotic, but leaning toward light. The alien being inclined its head, observed, chosen, not ended. The sky cracked open again, and they were back aboard the Valiant. The alien ships were gone. The stars had returned to their proper places. Earth hung quietly in the distance. Merrick let out a slow breath. "Was that it?" Alina looked to the view screen. The Odysseus had begun to move, gently breaking orbit, its form shifting once again into something unfamiliar, destined for the next threshold. "No," she said. "That was only the beginning."